Hi, my name is Josh Danig. I'm the Associate Director of the Office of National Fellowships at Florida State University, and I am presenting today on fellowships to fund graduate education for STEM students. So just as a heads up, I am recording this presentation. I will be happy to share with you afterward. Also, because it's being recorded for your safety and security of your identity, I would just suggest putting your questions into the chat box, and I can read them and answer them as we go, or I may just save them all for the end. We'll just feel it out. So to begin, just want to give you a couple of heads up about what we're talking about. We'll be discussing a few different fellowships that exist, where those funding sources come from, and how my office and the Office of Graduate Fellowships and Awards, which is the graduate version of our office, works with students and alumni. So sources of funding. So there are departmental sources. This is your faculty members who are supporting you may actually be aware of some funding that exists in their department, or the faculty at the institution you want to attend may be aware of some funding that exists. These can come in the forms of research assistantships, teaching assistantships, and other forms of graduate assistantship. And you also have foundations and institutes like the Ford Foundation, the Hertz Foundation, that have missions to increase the number of professors in this field, or to increase the number of researchers in this field. And so you have institutes like that that are looking to support students and to support their mission by funding the graduate studies of students who fit their mission and goals. You also have organizations and societies like Society for Women Engineers, Society of Neuroscientists. These are typically discipline-specific or identity-specific awards. And just as a heads up, you can find versions of all of this, except for really departmental funding. You can find versions of foundations and institutes, organizations and societies, as well as government-funded fellowships on the Office of National Fellowships website. Just by using the parameters on the left-hand side, you can go specifically to identity-based awards or STEM-based awards and find these particular fellowships on there. And then lastly, the government fellowships. This is National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowship, the NSFGRP, which stands for the National Science Foundation's Graduate Research Fellowship Program, Fulbright U.S. Student Award. All of these can be funding for graduate school for people interested in careers and fields of STEM. And predominantly, this is what we're going to be focused on today, are these government-funded fellowships. So who can help you apply? If you're an undergraduate or an alumni of FSU's undergraduate program, the Office of National Fellowships is a great resource for you. We support students who are applying for these types of awards, as well as just about any other fellowship or scholarship. If you are a current graduate student or an alumni of FSA and FSU graduate program, AFSU graduate program, then the Office of Graduate Fellowships and Awards would be your office, and I will provide contact information at the end of this presentation for both offices. What can we do to help? So we help with application management. So we are keeping an eye on deadlines and when the applications open. We try to work as closely with as many students as want to apply. And so working closely is, guiding you in your writing and editing, helping you find the right recommenders if you have questions about that, giving you an audience to review your materials. And if the fellowship dictates, like we will also establish the FSU policies with regard to that award. None of the awards we're talking about today have FSU policies, but if you were, for example, interested in applying for the Fulbright U.S. Student Program, there is an application process that is required of you, in addition to meeting the national deadline, to apply through your university that at the moment being Florida State. So the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, or NSF-GRFP for short, you can apply for this as a undergraduate senior. You can apply for this as an alumni of an undergraduate program, or you can apply for this in your first or second year of a research-based master's or doctoral degree. You cannot hold a graduate or professional degree at the time of application. And this is for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. The fields are listed there, but essentially it's every STEM field, including psychology and some data-driven social sciences as well. Deadlines vary, depends on the field. I'll show you that page in a moment, but deadlines are the dates October 18th through October 22nd this year. You can start your application using that link, and when you click on that link, it brings you to this page here. Whereas you can see, you would create a login to start your application, begin a fellowship application, register here. And here are the deadlines based on fields. And they also give you specifics about the recommender deadlines and other pertinent details. So returning to the PowerPoint. Excuse me. What does the application include? Personal information, a personal statement, and previous research experience essay. And then a proposed plan of research essay, 3 reference letters. You can submit 5, but minimum of 3, and academic transcripts. With regard to the essays, I believe we're talking about those now. Yeah, we'll get to those. Okay, so I'll hold off on that comment. First, with recommenders, you really want these people to be faculty, researchers, people who can talk about your research experience and your qualities of research. Some things you can do to help them, help your referees, help you. Provide a complete CV of yourself. So CV, resume. CV typically focuses on educational experiences. Make sure they can write about you personally. So work on building a relationship with them if you haven't already. Discuss your research topic with them and talk to them early and check in with them often, not only to remind them, but also just to keep them abreast of how you're doing and what you're working on, and how your application's coming along. And so how you're doing what you're working on, I mean, like outside of the fellowship, as well as how your application for NSF GRFP is coming along. I think it's a good idea to share your essay materials with them. Our office, we are happy to give you feedback and can speak to, your essay strengths as it relates to what will the reviewers see. What I mean by that is, like, we like to put ourselves in the shoes of who's reviewing this and think, like, what is this essay doing big picture? How are these paragraphs flowing together? Does the content seem relevant? And so we'll be able to do that, but you also want someone in your field who can say, hey, this might pass the test for a chemist, but any true biologist will know, A plus B does not equal Z here. And so you need to clean that up. So for someone to just go back and check your work and make sure that it's on the right direction is a really big benefit. The other one, of course, is that that'll help them in writing their letters if they know how you're presenting yourself and what you say you want to do in the future. Okay, so moving on. Personal background and future goal statements. So this is essentially a personal statement. This is also where you get to talk about your research experience and your as it says, your goals for graduate school as well as what your goals are beyond graduate school as well. Just know you don't have to commit to anything you say in this essay. And what I mean by that is with regard to your future and regard to your proposed research in the other essay, those things can change, right? Life happens, you find new interests. The faculty you end up working with at X university is really drawn to a topic and has convinced you that it's the topic for you to study. Suddenly you're going in a different direction. That's fine. But what you're being asked to do is say, from where I'm sitting now, this is where I see my life going in an ideal sense. So keep that in mind. I hope that gives you some leeway to idealize your future. And then the graduate research plan statement. So this is your essay where you write about what it is you want to study during graduate school and how you're going to go about that. As I said, same deal, forecast it. There was a presentation I went to, I think about 2 years ago in the biology department where there was a group of NSF GRFP recipients and they were asked, how many of you enrolled in graduate school and did the research you talked about in the graduate research plan statement? And it turned out it was about 50-50. I think 2 people had and 2 people hadn't. And again, as I just said a moment ago, that's because things change. Your interests change, the professor you get paired with changes. It happens, but just again, from where you're sitting now, what is it that most excites you? Why is it that you're going to graduate school? What is it? What questions do you want to answer? In both essays, you're asked to talk about intellectual merit and broader impacts. And so here are a few examples of what they mean by intellectual merit. And so most of this is relevant to the personal statement. And so you want to show this in a meaningful way and not in a compelling way, and not just like, I'm a thoughtful student, I'm a thoughtful student, or here's a list of awards I've won. They'll see that on the CV component of your application. But you are asked to set aside a section of your essay devoted to intellectual merit. You'll give it a heading, intellectual merit, and you'll talk about your intellectual merit. And then in your research essay, you'll talk about the intellectual merit of your proposed research project. Then there's broader impacts. So same deal. So this is sort of the, you give us your goals. So personal statement wise, give us your goals and then tell us what are the impacts of those goals to others. What's the value of this research besides just answering a question that's nagging at you? What is the value of this? And what would be the value of that information? And then second, with regard to your proposed research project, again, what is the value to others of answering the question you propose to answer? So you can see some ideas there. General application tips. Read the entire solicitation carefully. So the solicitation is on that website that we just looked at a moment ago, and it is long, and it looks like a legal paper, but it is very much worth your time. Even though it looks like a legal paper, it's pretty easy to follow. And you want to keep this in mind while you're working on your writing, because we're thinking about, as fellowship advisors, you're thinking about like, what is it that the reviewers are looking for? And so the way you should be thinking about is, who is my audience? And what boxes do I need to check off for them? that solicitation is going to be very explicit about what they're looking for. And so you can know what information will be most relevant to your readers. Yeah, I think everything else here makes sense. I don't see any questions have popped up yet, so we're just going to keep going. And if you do have questions, again, just put them in the chat box and we will address them at the end. So another fellowship we work with pretty regularly is the Department of Energy's Computational Science Graduate Fellowship. Again, this is another one that is a government-funded fellowship. So they give you there the numbers of awards. So they're looking for undergraduate seniors, not enrolled in graduate school already, or you can be in your first year of graduate school. They give you their preferred fields there, how many awards they give out each year, and what that funding looks like. We didn't talk about the funding for NSF GRFP, but it's pretty comparable to this. And I believe it was on the NSF GRFP page. Let's go back to make sure. If not, we can talk about it in a little more detail. No, it's not. Okay, so you'll want to check out that NSF page. But it is, I believe, 3 years at $32,000. They also provide some funding for research expenses as well as conference attendance expenses, and explicitly say like both in the US and outside the US. So if you decided you wanted to attend a conference or pursue research outside the US, that would be fine. The goal for both of these is to really get you invested in research. And so they're hoping that by providing this funding, you will be able to devote more time to the lab and less time to like having a part-time job in order to maintain solvency, I suppose. Deadline is in January for that one. And then another similar one that's government funded, Department of Defense Science, Mathematics, and Research for Transformation Scholarship. This is known as the DoD Smart Scholarship. Potential U.S. citizens 18 years or older with 3.0 GPA. You have to be willing to participate in an internship with DoD and work with DoD after graduation. STEM fields within 21 disciplines. You can find those on the website. They offer $300 a year. And their funding is for stipend, full tuition and fees, summer internship, health insurance allowance, book allowance. And the deadline to apply this cycle is December 1st, 2021. And you have to, this last part and what we talked about a moment ago, like you have to be interested in Department of Defense work. So make sure that's something that fits with your goals and mission. And then there's the National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowship, NDSCG. And for U.S. citizens, nationals who intend to pursue a doctoral degree, all STEM fields are welcome. Just under 200 awards there. This is a 3-year fellowship package that gives you a stipend, covers your cost of tuition and fees and insurance. The deadline for this one is November 1st this year. I'm going to stop here for 2 reasons. One, we have now transitioned away from the government fellowships, and we're going to talk about those foundation fellowships. So these are organizations typically in someone's name, developed in someone's name as in memorial to them. And the second thing I wanted to say is that a lot of these fellowships you might be looking at and being like, well, I could apply for like 3 or 4 of these so far. And that might seem overwhelming, especially since you're also applying to graduate school. But I will point out that much like graduate school, a lot of these applications are really asking for the same thing. And so it's just a matter of like how length changes or how you contextualize the information you've provided in one application for another one based on how the prompt differs slightly. So it's a lot of materials that you can sort of reuse. So keep that in mind if you do find yourself interested in several of these. So now we're talking about the Ford Foundation. And And so they have several different awards, which are listed at the top. This is for undergraduate seniors, graduate students in their first or second year, U.S. citizens, nationals, or permanent residents who plan on completing a PhD or science doctorate within 7 years. They give you their preferred fields there and the breakdown of the awards based on the type of award, funding, and deadline this year is December 9th or December 16th. And the other foundation we're talking about is the Hertz Foundation Fellowship. So this one's for undergraduate seniors or first-year graduate students, U.S. citizens or nationals at a tenable school. So as you can see from the note there, FSU is not listed as a tenable school, but first we have to have a successful applicant to become a tenable school. And you must be pursuing a PhD. Fields, applied physical and biological science, mathematics, and engineering. So like a pretty limited perspective of STEM. They're not limited, but let's say exclusive. They have very specific programs they're interested in. They award $29 a year. You have their funding there. And the deadline this year is October 29th, 2021. So right after the NSF GRP awards, if you decide to apply for both. Hertz is an award that you can accept in addition to others, which is really great news if you're getting other scholarships, if you're offered a graduate assistant or research assistantship position, and in addition you have a Hertz, that would be okay. So timeline-wise, especially if you're thinking about several of these awards, it's important to sort of build a schedule for yourself that you can adhere to. So 2 months before the application, like start requesting transcripts, letters, scores, contact research services for IDs if necessary, submit initial draft of your documents to OCFAR or ONF for structure and content review. In a month, a month and a half before a deadline, submit draft of document to the Writing Center for additional audience, and then a month before. By the way, from here for our review, we're happy to look at this stuff as often as once a week. And so if you started that 2 months before a deadline, then you get two reviews from us before you submit it to the Writing Center, and then another 2 reviews from us before you submit it to a professor. So at that point, it should be in like decent shape. We usually say minimum of 4 meetings before you click submit on an application, or 4 meetings that are focused on your essay drafts, tends to put you in a decent spot. And then more than that really makes people pretty competitive. 3 weeks before deadline, submit revised drafts documents. So really, I actually disagree with this table. I think this should continue. It should just be a continuous process. If you have the time and the fellowship advisor has the time, it should just go on. And propose transmittal forms signed by professor, chair, dean, if necessary. This applies to very specific awards, not all of them. And then final review, usually a week before the deadline, so that you can do cleanup and click submit. So that's potential for 7 or 8 meetings with a fellowship advisor, reviewing your essays and giving you feedback. You're going to have good material by that point. Contact information. So broadly, there's the Office of Graduate Fellowships and Awards. Again, they work with graduate students, current graduate students, so you can get their contact information there. Dr. Adrian Stevenson's the director of that program, fantastic person to work with. And then on the left-hand side, you have Office of National Fellowships. That's our office, the office that I'm a part of, and you have our broad contact information there. But then here are emails for people you could reach out to. My name's Josh Stanek. I'm the second one. down, but any of us are fine. So if you're interested in these fellowships, but don't work with me in particular, that is okay. I won't be heartbroken. You are welcome to contact Dr. Filer, Jesse, or Christine. They're all great. Cool. So that's the end of my presentation. Pulling up the chat box to see if I have any questions from you all. Let's see. Just reading through. Well, it looks as though you all have answered each other's questions. So unless any new ones pop up, I'm going to suggest we are wrapping up then. Oh, okay. Goodbye. I see some people are leaving now. So it was a pleasure chatting. I hope you found this information valuable, and I hope we can see you in our offices soon. Take care, everybody.